Mr. George Leo, member of IESE's International Advisory Board, will address the audience.
Parents, relatives and friends of the graduates, Dean Franz Heukam, Professor Mark Badia, teachers and staff of IESE Business School, President Maria Irabura from the University of Navarra, benefactors and friends of this remarkable institution, and of course, dear graduates. This is a joyous day. But first, let me record my own gratitude to Dean Heukam for the honor of addressing you today. It is a special day, and this is a great institution. I've been associated with IESE since 2010 as a member of the Board of International Advisors. This school was established by Jose Maria Escriva. In 1952, he established the University of Navarra. I attended his canonization in 2002. For some strange reason, an invitation came to me. I had not heard much about the Opus Dei. So I decided I had to do some due diligence and decided, yes, it was a good thing to go. I brought my wife and my two younger sons, one of whom was battling childhood leukemia. St. Jose Maria had this great insight that most of modern life is economic life. We're employed in business or in government or in some NGO. Most of the day, we do our work. We get rewarded. We follow processes. And most of us will not do anything which is unethical, immoral, or illegal. But it is a way to make a living. St. Jose Maria felt that it's important that economic life be sanctified. So he directed that the University of Navarra establish a business school here in Barcelona. And 60 years ago, Harvard Business School, from where I graduated a long time ago, helped IESE establish the MBA program. In 2005, Singapore's founding Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew accepted an invitation to speak here. In cabinet, I told Lee Kuan Yew, I said, the school was established by a Catholic saint. He looked a bit surprised, but didn't say anything. But he looked thoughtful to me. This is a special school. And it is special because it puts to the fore the moral dilemmas that we face every day, especially in business. In different countries, in different situations, there are moral dilemmas. If it's a choice between good and evil, that's easy. But very often, we confront shades of gray. Things are not black and white. You do something, others are hurt, maybe unfairly. You say, well, do everything according to the book, then nothing may get done. And it depends on the country you are in and the level you operate at. There are no simple answers, and very often, the choices we make involve a struggle which is a moral dilemma. It's important that when you are launched into working life, you accept that there will always be struggles. That whether you're in a leadership role, or as an employee, whether in a high position or in a low position, there are moral dilemmas which all of us face. And we have to help one another, confront, and make the right decisions. This school is special because in the classroom, along the corridors, in your relationship to one another, the moral dilemma is put up front. You're not just learning how to use knives. You're learning when these knives should be used and how they should be used. And that's very important than using the knife itself. We're entering a great transition in the world. Between America and China, there is a titanic struggle. And countries big and small are somehow caught in the tension. Europe is caught in the tension. The Ukraine war has many dimensions to it. At one level, it is a contest for supremacy in the world. It's also about human suffering, how ordinary people are caught in situations over which they have no control. And the big things get reflected in little communities, in the classrooms. When Americans and Chinese talk to one another, when Russians and Ukrainians interact with one another, do we bring the geopolitics into our interpersonal relations? I remember when we had the Catalonian problem in Spain, how this school, being in Barcelona, was put in a difficult position. We cannot avoid politics. And we cannot avoid politics affecting our daily lives. But in how we relate to one another, we make choices. And if we can broaden our minds, enlarge our hearts, if we are prepared to put ourselves in the shoe of the other, to empathize, to see that to every problem there are two sides, then there's a chemistry. Relationships are not forged in partying. Relationships are forged in pain, when there's conflict. And when there's a challenge, either we become stronger or we become weaker. This is a special day for you. The MBA is valuable currency. You will open many doors for the rest of your life. People will say, you carry a trust mark, which you have to honor and protect. But it's also important, as Professor Badia reminded you, to be grateful. And I was very touched by the way you stood up and applaud from your heart your parents who made possible who you are today. And the student presidents thanking teachers, staff, canteen operators, others. Without them, we can't be where we are today. Sometimes we get carried away and we think it's because we're brilliant, we are clever, we are cunning, so we got to where we are. Yes, there's personal ability involved. But without others bringing us here to launch us off, there is no launching off. So today, when you are celebrating a successful 2 years, it is good that you remember those who created this school, who established its traditions, its values, who devised the curriculums, who experimented with many things, so that you had this wonderful program. And you went through a very difficult period during COVID. In many business schools, classes were shut, and people Zoom in. But in this school, you had an almost normal experience. Those of us who are advisors, we had many Zoom meetings, and we were kept brief about how you were doing during this period. It required organization by everybody, discipline, most importantly, consideration for one another, that we protect one another, that we don't be selfish. And that's how we had this rich experience, which many MBA students elsewhere did not have. I can say this because one of my sons went through an MBA program, and it was an attenuated program because of COVID. But IESE did better than most. So when we are ranked high, it is not just because we tick certain boxes. It's because there's a certain spirit in us. You are a very diverse community. And you have learned how to manage diversity. The food we eat, the prayers we say, the assumptions we make about one another, the relationship between men and women, gay relationships. These values arouse passions in us. But we learn that we're all human beings, that we share a common fraternity, and that therefore, by putting ourselves into the position of the other, we find common ground. And in that common ground, a chemistry operates and a community develops. I knew a Roman cardinal, a Flemish, young Scotty. He's passed away. He was the secretary to the Synod of Bishops under Pope John Paul II. And one day he was drafting a speech for the Pope before the Synod meeting. In it, he wrote, "Despite our differences, we are one." Despite our differences. John Paul II said, no. He said, because of our differences, we are one. In other words, a unity based upon common values, based upon identity, is a false unity. Even identical twins are different. A unity accepts as a starting point the fact that we're all different, that we have different views, different passions, different hopes, different fears, and we begin from there. And this school embodies that spirit every day, in the classroom, in the cases, in how a ceremony like this is conducted, in how the students choose their representatives. When I was foreign minister, I visited Iran. And in the holy city of Qom, I called on a grand Ayatollah. After an hour's conversation, he bade me farewell, and he said, "May you find what you seek. May you find what you seek." Those words continue to play in my mind, and I think these words will remain with me till my final moments. May you find what you seek. Because the question is, what do we seek? What do we seek? Fame, money, fortune, good health? But we can't take the wealth with us. Good health is important. Do we have time for other people? When I was health minister, we had a very serious discussion about Down syndrome. They are not often seen in public life. Sometimes families are embarrassed by them. And today, young couples take tests to decide whether or not to abort the fetus. In the old days, they had to take the amniotic fluid, which is a dangerous procedure. Today, a blood test will do. I was troubled when a young friend said, "It's been 3 months and I'm happy to tell you that my wife is pregnant." I did not want to tell you earlier because she was going to take the test first. The implication being that if the test showed that there's a high probability of Down syndrome, they would have aborted the child. Now, as a health minister, we've got to look at practical realities because resources are finite. One of my woman officers said, "I have a Down syndrome child. She is very loving." You know, I did not think of Down syndrome in those terms, that they can be very loving. In Singapore, there is a Catholic center where they have a restaurant where Down syndrome kids serve. And the people who go there are very patient, and this is a nice feeling. When we look after one another, when we enhance one another, we enhance ourselves. When we diminish the other person, when we take pleasure in making them feel small, we diminish ourselves. So whether we are employers or employees or colleagues, it's always important to think in terms of how the other person feels, what his hopes are. Can we enhance the other person? If we are, we enhance ourselves, and as importantly, we enhance the group, and the group becomes more productive. And sometimes the morale of the group is very dependent on how we treat those among us who are sick, who are fallen, who are deformed. That somehow, because they remind us and we help them, so we relate to one another in a special way. So what do we seek? We seek meaning in life. We seek fulfillment. And that's an inward journey. But that inward journey, in the end, has to be expressed in our relationship with other people. With our parents, with our siblings, with relatives, with our teachers, our friends, with strangers, with those with whom we are divided politically, religiously, or ideologically. So I wish all of you a fulfilling and an abundant life. Thank you.